Hey, I'm Dirty Dan and welcome back to Greasy Boy Customs. Today we are back on the 77 Bronco, moving forward with our sheet metal repairs. Let's go ahead and dive in. So we're gonna go ahead and start tackling this rocker on the driver's side. Now, as you can see here, this thing is in pretty rough shape. We're gonna dive in a little bit closer before we start removing it, and I'm gonna show you what has happened. So as you can see, this thing has sheet metal screws. It's come loose down here. It's not even close to touching there. This has all been shoved in. This is pulled out. This fiberglass fender is come loose. And in the front side here too, everything is just destroyed. What do you think, Abby? You know the deal. So we're gonna go ahead and get these screws out and see what lies under here. All right, we got that rocker off. So this is all pretty well destroyed under here. It's we could cut this out and make a new one, but honestly, it's really not worth it. Probably better off just getting a replacement panel. We'll see if it's available. Get one coming. Good Lord. All right, let's start getting this out of the way. So we went ahead and removed this section. You can see every one of these holes on both sides is a spot weld. Those spot welds all need to be drilled out to remove it. Now, if you're replacing all the panels, you can just kind of go in there with a cutoff wheel and cut it out, but we're trying to replace as little as possible, which is not working out so hot. Looks like we're going to be replacing just about everything. So we got this piece out of the way, right? Then you got this. You got all these extra spot welds to drill out. Then this comes off, like so. Now you have everything exposed. Just want to touch back on this real quick. Before we went ahead and started removing this, we did go ahead and weld some bracing in here, because once this whole section is out, you've got almost no support up here. Now, we're gonna have to move this around to get it set up. Once we get these panels tacked in, we're just gonna tack them in, and then we're gonna get the door up in place and get it kind of set in place before we weld any panels in to make sure our alignment's gonna be correct, since there was damage to this area. Go ahead and finish cleaning this up, and then we can actually finish cutting that cowl piece out we were talking about in the last video, which also welds to that panel we just dropped out. You can see here we got the lower inner rocker taken off of here. We did have to do a lot of drilling and cutting because there was previous repairs that were made that were low quality. So now we have a much nicer quality repair we're going to do. Now with drilling out these spot welds, you guys seen the way I do it. I drill it out with a drill and then I use a unibit or something. They do make bits called spot weld drill bits, or you can grind them out, and this way you're only drilling and cutting the top piece of sheet metal, so your bottom piece is staying intact. But we are replacing almost everything on here, so everything that we're drilling against is likely going to be replaced. Another thing you can do is when you put the metal back over the top, the holes you made on the old panel, you can use that as your holes to spot weld from the bottom if you'd like. So now that we have that out of the way, the next step is going to be fitting this on here is going to be the next step. Now we have to do some more trimming. Some of this pillar's in the way, and as you can see, we got this fender off also. This fender was actually completely fiberglass, and it was glued in, and it was held together with metal straps and bungee cords on the back, surprisingly. So we just kind of grabbed it and ripped it off because it was in the way. But you have to pay attention to how the panels stack and how they go in and what order they go in. And we're going to start getting these back together so we'll have our structural integrity. And again, like Walmart furniture, we're not going to weld them in solid. We're going to tack them in, and then we're going to make sure everything fits before we weld it in solid. It'll save you some trouble in the long run. This is the fiberglass fender that we took off. You can see it was a one-piece fiberglass design. It had the two fuel doors in it. There's one down here you may not be able to see. This works fine if it's done correctly, but this was installed poorly, so unfortunately it actually created more work for us. Then we'll show you that as we go putting on the new quarter in the near future. And as you can see, we got some panels on there finally. Now remember, these panels are just tacked in place. You can see we just have a couple tacks. Some of you may be wondering why I have tacks up here in the seam. That's because we're going to weld this seam up solid, as well as the seams at the back here. You don't want to just fill these with Bondo. You want to weld them up and then bodywork over the top of them. So we're going to do that. We've got the inner and outer rocker, the B pillar, in place, and we're working on the A-pill or the front apron. And once we get everything lined up, we're going to hang a door on there before we weld it up solid, make sure the door lines up and fits correctly. And then from there, we can weld everything in and we should be good to go. Watch out for future videos on this. We're going to keep going. We still got to do this on the other side as well, the front sheet metal, and then we're going to be pulling the body off, sandblasting the frame, coating the bottom of the body, and getting ready to install the engine and transmission and mock all of that up. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, happy hot rodding.